We've already looked at the northern side of the intersection of Military and Water Street, and now let's look at the south side. This happens to be the southwest corner. And if this looks familiar, this is the one that opens our videos for the last few videos anyway. Today there's no building on that corner, but there used to be. There may have been something else here before they tore this building down, but I don't have any photo later than the Michigan National Bank, as you can see here. But the business this building housed for most of the years that it was here was a drugstore. First it was a Barnett drugstore, and then much earlier it was a Lostorfer drugstore. But this is a drugstore that I remember, Barnetts drugstore. It was owned and operated by John Barnett, who was also a pharmacist. It was a pretty popular place, especially with the folks on the south side of the bridge. You had kids that would go in for sodas and just catching up, and some of the folks that worked south of the bridge would go in there and grab a quick lunch. Here's a color photo looking north on Military at it, and you can see the People's Bank in the background. And judging from the automobile here, this would be a much earlier shot. One of the things that I didn't catch when we were doing the People's Bank, and I did see when I looked at this photo, if you look carefully in the front of the People's Bank, they've added a fire escape. I never realized that before. Certainly doesn't do much for the looks of the building, but then again, if the top floor is on fire and you're on it, I guess looks isn't important. This photograph was taken at one of the parades, and it gives you a pretty good look at the signage of the building. And but look upstairs, you see the folks sitting in the window just enjoying watching the parade. In this photo here, you can see some ladies huddling up there in the entranceway to Barnetts, and actually what I believe they're doing is just waiting for the bus. There was a bus stop right in front of Barnetts, as well as two other corners of Military and Water Street. This is looking south down Military, and this would have been in front of Barnetts, and you can see all the folks getting here in the dead of winter on the bus. The Port Huron City Bus Line. Here's a couple more pictures of the city bus. These were taken in the bus garage, and we were putting new signs on them. Nothing like working with your suit on and your hat on. Pretty classy sign outfit. Here we have an ad for a Barnett drugstore. This one happens to be at 512 Huron Avenue. Barnett's actually at one time had 3 locations. One, of course, on the Huron Avenue location, another one at 923 Pine Grove, and then, of course, the one on Military. Barnett's was on this corner from about 1935-36 into the 60s. From the late 1800s into the 1930s, when Barnett took over, this building was occupied by another druggist, and that was Joseph Lostorfer. This is a great photograph taken in the late 1800s. It gives us an idea of what that block looked like on the west side. Beautiful architecture going down there, and we'll look at some of that later. It also gives us some idea of what the roads looked like before they were paved. But most important, since we're looking at this particular corner, is what the building looked like originally. You'll note a few differences between this one and the one when Barnett's was in it, even though it was the same building. When Barnett's occupied this building, they occupied the space up to the bay windows, those 2 bay windows there. And during the time that Barnett's was always there, that part of the building was always a different business. At one time it was Sears, and later on it was Ben's. And in this photo it looks like there's a business that is different than the drugstore below those bay windows. And also there's another business right below the 2 windows next to it that Barnett's eventually would acquire. So this would have been actually a smaller drugstore than Barnett's turned out to be. You will also see that the roof line is much more decorative in this photo than it was when Barnett's had it. You can see that the eyebrows over the windows are the same, however. And although the columns are different, you can see they retained the columns on the Barnetts store. And you can see the columns here when Westarp had it. And on the bottom right, you can see where it says drugstore. In this photograph, we see some gentlemen standing on that corner in front of Losdorfer's drugstore. And as we look down Military Street, we see what it was like back in the late 1800s. We see the streetcar making its way north. It gives us a good view of both sides of the street. Here you can see that the drugstore was very close to the Opera House, just a few doors down. You can see the two bay windows there, just the other side of a sign. And you can see the hustle and bustle at the street level. And then you can see the streetcar now heading south. This photo would have been taken in the early 1900s, as you can see an automobile there on your left now. Yes, at one time the southwest corner looked like this, and today it looks like this. Alright, let's go across the street now and look at the southeast corner. If you want to see what Military Street looked like back in the 1800s, you only have to look at this building here. This is a beautifully restored building, and it's a building that was actually here in the 1800s. Black and white pictures just don't do the buildings on Military justice. They would have been all different colors of bricks and decorative trim, roof lines. It would have been great to see a colored picture of that time period. We do have a few postcards, but they kind of colored them whatever color they wanted to color. Here's a close-up of the decorative trim that you see on the building. It's just beautiful. Here's a picture of the same building in the 1800s. See what I mean? A black and white picture just doesn't do these buildings justice. Also notice that the roof line today is still intact. This is what it looked like back in the 1800s, and it's pretty much what it looks like today, and that's pretty amazing because most businesses and owners took that top off for fear of falling on the pedestrians below. And speaking of pedestrians, we see a few right here. Also notice that the road is a dirt road. And it would also appear that there's a hanging clock in front of the building. In the 1880s and 90s and the first couple of years of the 1900s, this corner of this building was occupied by a bank. It wasn't a commercial bank or a national bank or savings bank. It was a private bank owned by J.J. Boyce. Actually, the first couple of banks in Port Huron were private banks. They may have changed over the years, but J.J. Boyce is the only name I have for that bank. It's at the corner of the bank because the bank didn't take up the whole bottom floor. It just took up a small portion of it, actually. Here, let me turn this around so we get a better look at it. You can see from this map here that that was the bank on the corner. You can see that dotted line. That was the portion that the bank was located in. You can also see that there was a barber located in the basement of the building, and there was an insurance company on the second floor. And then the other half of the building, it looked like a millinery shop for ladies' hats. Today it looks like this. Coffee Harbor's there for lunches and for ice cream. Actually, we were in Port Huron just a week ago, and we stopped in there. And if you stop in, you'll get a chance to see some of the history of this bank that we've just been looking at. As you walk in the front door, and if you look to your left where all the brick wall is here, this is the part that used to be the bank. And to the right, where the different flooring is, the different ceiling is, and where that column is on the other side of the column, that used to be where the millinery shop was. Of course, there's been several businesses in both places over the years. But the historical part, the part that you'll really enjoy seeing, is the bank vault, which is still there today and in very good shape. Let's take a closer look at it. It's quite a decorative vault. You can see the picture above it and the framing of it, quite ornate. And then of course the large vault with the doors that open, one on each side. Then inside you see a smaller safe. And if you look closely at this safe, you'll see that there's two smaller safes even inside of that one. This is beautiful framework and molding around this painting. Pretty impressive. And the fact that it's still in such excellent shape is even more impressive. And in the southern part of the building, where the fountain is and the counter, you can see the original tin ceiling. And you can look closely, you can see the designs in it. I imagine this was in the bank at one time as well. Of all the black and white photos of this building, I believe this one looks the most like it does today. Or perhaps I should say vice versa. Because you can see the details and the ornate and decorative molding on this building. Much as it looks like today, and they've done a nice job restoring it so it can look like this. In 1904, S.D. Runnels had a real estate office and insurance company in this location. And if you look here, you can see the signage, real estate Runnels below it. And later on, there was a tailor by the name of Thomas Beckman that was located on the north end of this building. And on the south end, it was a haberdashery, men's clothing, run by the Wagon Sale brothers, who took in a partner by the name of Scott Reed. And Scott Reed either took over the business and bought them out, or when they retired, he bought them out. Because now you can quite plainly see the signage on the front of the building saying Scott Reed. Here it is from a little different angle. I was growing up, Kellogg Corset Shop was on the north end of the building, and there for a while Bell's copy shop was on the south end. Of course, Bell's is in probably three places at least that I know of in Port Huron, so he moved around a little bit. There is one difference in the building of today versus the building of yesteryear. If you look on the side of the building, you'll see that there's a staircase, a covered staircase going up along the side of the building to the second floor. And of course, the building today doesn't have that. Next time you're feeling nostalgic and have a hankering to see what the Port Huron of yesteryear looked like and back in the 1800s, 1900s, all you have to do is come to this corner. Perhaps squint your eyes a little bit and take the cars that are going by out of it and the people and the things that are going on round about it. If you look at just this building, you'll see what Port Huron was like way back then. I wasn't sure where I wanted to go next. Water Street, the pier. Do I want to continue going down Military? And I think I will go down Military, but I think I'll start on the west side. Some wonderful buildings there. Actually, the building's pictured right here.